Gonna say you, or are we taking it here for Tammy? I just came back. Yeah.
All right, you guys ready to dig in here? Okay, so last week kind of created some homework. Working on a morning routine. How'd you guys do?
I'm the last person to ask because it's been terrible.
Okay,
In the morning.
so we talked about morning routine, gratitudes, starting the morning off with some gratitudes. Meditation, reading something positive, affirmations, right? Written 25 times daily. The reading the mastery page, and then 2 note cards or texts out to people. How'd you guys do with that? What's that?
Like that.
Uh-huh.
It's literally approximately $10.
Yep.
I have these, but there's 25 lines on it. How about that?
That's perfect.
Then I had to sort my.
Yep. Yep.
I'm gonna, excuse me, I am putting money transaction.
Okay, I'm closing 20 transactions between now and 2025.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I didn't write that part.
Okay.
No, because I wanted to do. Thing. I never said a number, but I wanted to be a little. So.
Okay. Anyone else do their affirmations? Okay. How'd it go?
Great.
It's easy, right? Any aha moments yet?
That I don't like writing something 25. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yep.
And I started waking up thinking, like, it literally, I woke up today and yesterday and it was like in my head.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good thing.
Also, I will say, just as a note, for the handwritten notes, if you go to the dollar store, I don't know about, like, the one that I go to has like an amazing selection of like cards. And I hate buying cards because they're like $9 a piece, and you're like, well, I'm not sending out that many cards. The dollar store has like 50-cent dollar cards that are really good. So just as a,
Okay,
I don't know, so I
Yeah.
go and I buy like 20 of them, and
awesome.
yeah.
Very good. Anyone want to share what their mantras were?
Mine is, I can bring my notebook with me. I enjoy calling new prospects and connecting with old clients.
Okay, I like that.
So mine changed. First it was, I enjoy making $500,000 a year while being free and clear and weighing 170 pounds. And by the end of day 2, I was like, screw this. I don't want to weigh 170 pounds anymore. I'll be fat.
Yeah.
So now it's, I enjoy making 500,000 a year and being free and clear.
Cool.
And then you can hire a trainer and a dietitian.
Yeah.
Or I'll
Yeah.
be fat.
Yeah. Cool. Good job. That was, and again, that's like, because the thing is writing it in the present tense, right? And trying to attach it to something that is tangible. Right on. Anyone else want to share their affirmations?
Come on, guys, you gotta believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I will tell you I've been doing it, and my hand got really tired.
It does.
But and I shortened mine a little too. I truncated some things in it. But it got me thinking a little bit as I'm writing it. Just as I'm writing those 25 things, I'm starting, like, my mind starts going places that, kind of gets you refocused on stuff. So definitely, if you haven't started, it's not too late. And I think that's part of this book is this isn't, and the beauty of this business, and also the curse, is you can start at any time. But the best time to start is now. So, okay. Anything else? Anyone reading the Mastery every day? I pick up different meetings every time I read it. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm with you there, cause I feel like every time I read it, I'm like, I don't remember that line from last time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's always something.
All right, cool. Well, let's dive in here to week 2. And I'll tell you, this is probably like this section is really intense. And some good stuff here. Okay, chapter 13, the pursuer, distance or dance. Any feedback on this chapter? It was a short one. Make sense?
I know that I get that way. If I have a salesperson who keeps pushing me, I'm like, I don't wanna work with you now, cause you've now annoyed me.
Yep.
And I'm actually gonna.
Anyone else?
Yeah, this one's a little tough for me. It says, like, started real estate through MFO and, they're pursuers.
Yeah.
So, it's a little bit tough for me to just kind of think to attract versus go after.
And I think for someone who's got a cold section in their business, I think you detached part of this from it. This is really how do you, and as we got to the end of the section we were reading, you can tell there's abundance, I think he's trying to get you back to basically this is how do you work your sphere of influence, a different way to really look at it. And then there are other channels in your business that pursue those, and that's going to be a different, but within your sphere of influence, I think definitely the law of attraction. Yep. And I heard someone say this, like, how do you catch a butterfly? Right? Like, butterflies, you don't catch them by running around with a net, you catch them with beautiful flowers. So there's things in your business that you want to use to attract consumers. And sometimes if you're pursuing, you're just never going to get them because that's not where they're at. Okay. 14, creating value. Thoughts on this chapter?
I think we talk about that all the time, especially in the age of competition and people undercutting with commissions and all of that stuff, is that we have to make people understand why we are different, what value we bring that earns us. I'm so hesitant to use commission words anymore, but, what sets us apart from somebody else? We can all do the same job and just your house, but why you would wanna, the steps that we take that create more value than the steps somebody else takes, that's just putting a sign in your yard and putting it in the MLS.
Yeah, and if you start thinking about, and that's where it gets into, it's almost like, well, okay, I provide tons of value for my clients. Prove it. Show me how you do that. And how do you all do that? Do you have any examples of how you do that?
Yeah, I can share, 'cause I actually had one happen, like this, so I really like the, wholesale versus retail analogy. I think I've never used that specific language, I love that language, and I think I'm gonna start using it. But I have one, a couple months ago, so over the summer, I was approached by a seller who had been renting out their condo, they wanted to get rid of it, and I had this conversation with them. Everything in the neighborhood was selling for about $250 to $275. We discussed putting work into the property and listing kind of at the top where some of the bigger units are selling. And the value that I brought to him was that I, charged him higher compensation, was able to bring in my crew to do the painting, the flooring repairs, get all the repairs that needed to be done. I brought my stager in, and so I was able to charge a higher compensation, and I was able to really get paid off of all of the services that got put into it. We listed the property for $310, and we ended up getting $310. So we made about $30,000 to $40,000 more by investing about $10,000 into the property.
Okay. So-
and I got paid really well. So it worked out for both of us.
Yeah. So how do you so your next client, how do you demonstrate that to them? How do you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, you use
I-
that story.
I do, I mean, I kind of take it as a case study, I have like a little pitch that I do for people are, whenever I pre-qualify them, are you looking to get top dollar? Are you looking to get rid of the project quick, or what is it that you're looking, like, what's the goal that you're looking to set? And that's mainly through my pre-qualification, which kind of takes us into the next, this is the next chapter of Ask Good Questions. But that's, kind of how I try to bring value in transactions, justify the percentage that I'm charging them versus getting beat up and having them knock me down.
And I think, what is a struggle though sometimes is when you're competing and creating value that doesn't also turn around and have you feel like you've been abused and used, and, suddenly you're the one out there cutting their grass, and you're the one out there, fixing things and doing things, and, there's going above and beyond, which, is awesome, but it's also trying to figure out that how you sell yourself without giving yourself away.
And I think kind of looking forward, that's that menu of looking into some menus of services. Mario, for your sake, like I pulled this and I showed this to you guys before, like a listing. So this is a listing case study. And I'll pass this around. This was a Leisure World property. It was really easy in Leisure World because I had the same model, chunk, and there were like, and they were small, so I could really hone in on like here, it was kitchens, bathrooms, flooring, and paint, right? And it was like, what was the combination of the four that the units had, all the same size? And I was able to show there was a difference between 167 to 235. And basically they didn't want to do anything. This was kind of like someone had turned the key on this 10 years ago and nothing had ever been touched. And I got them to put in about, I think we put in $7,300 to take a 167 and turn that into a 210. So, and then I've got another one. So I'll pass this around. Like, this is where, like, when it comes to this value, right? Like, I think you've got to try to find some examples where you can monetize this, like turn it into what's real for them.
Kind of like that too, Joe, is they say show don't tell.
Yep.
And you really show the data to it as opposed to just telling.
Let me go back, Mario. What wholesale retail? Tell me how you use that example.
So in pre-qualifying, I usually ask, what's your time frame and what's your goal? Generally, I have clients that are in one of three areas. Number one, they want top dollar. Number two, money's not really important. They're looking to get out of it quickly. And then we have somewhere in the middle where we're willing to maybe invest a little bit of time and money, but not give the property away. Where would you fall into that bucket? And, usually it'll be one of the two, right? I want to make top dollar, or I
Yeah.
get out of here. And then from there, I would take it and start figuring out what the best solution for them.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah, absolutely.
I do agree, but I disagree. And I think that I'm gonna give you a nice segue here, Joe, in the next chapter. But I think that it comes down to questions. And I think that it comes, because where we create value for our clients is through the ability to help them understand. And he says it's in here. The ability to ask questions that will help them understand the situation that they're in and understand what those priorities are for themselves. And I think that them understanding that they don't fit into a bucket, so more that's one part that I think that I would personally disagree with, is that making sure that they understand their nuance in their situation, that they are one of one, and you have these like general protocols for how to help somebody in their general situation. That's the way that I think.
Mhm.
And it's certainly not right for everyone, but I do think that it helps us establish value, asking questions, and letting people know that they don't necessarily. Because I don't want to be with Patch, all of you. I want to be separate from Pat, you know, and just have like, I want to be treated different. And I think that every single one of us wants to, have that situation for us. But I think that creating the, hopefully,
So may I ask you an example of who wouldn't fit in one of those buckets?
I think that it also comes down to like, let's say that, you do want to get top dollar to the town. However, the timing of it is very specific. Okay, well, if that timing doesn't work out, then, because we always say, you know, teachers, I'm sure quite well, they say, all right, well, we'll use $70, they make a pay up. There are a bunch of different other aspects to the offer, right? The offer, let me see everything. Then we can talk. So that's where I think that it gets a little bit towards that gray area. And maybe that's me just, you know, overanalyzing, but personally, I don't.
So I didn't understand your example. And I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So you're saying they wouldn't fit into one of those if they wanted to get top dollar, but the time frame didn't work out? What do you mean?
So it's not, that is not their own. Right, so that, my understanding of what the example is, laying out is that. Right, I'm saying that they're.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. Got it. Okay, chapter 15, asking the right questions. So we just did a book club a couple months ago, exactly what to say. Which was really, it's really exactly what to ask, almost. All right, any aha moments from this? 2-minute warning?
Yeah, I like the 2-minute warnings.
Fucking guilty as charged.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have a spouse who goes on appointments with you, you really find out how much you talk, right? Because they let you know. They had is this in here? They had something about how quickly, I think this is in the next, one of the next chapters. How many words per minute we talk versus,
150 words per minute, but we can listen up to like 400.
yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else with this, with asking the right questions? I think y'all get this pretty well, right?
Yeah. Not the answers inside, we like to tell them.
Yeah.
We don't, I learned, I finally read a parent book, thank goodness, because I was going on too long. You know, I don't need to say the reason you get a pick up your towel, because if not, I mean, you can just say towel, and she gets it. I think less is more.
Yeah.
So I like a reminder. Yeah.
Not only that, it's also the fact that it's impossible to really learn about lives, pains and pleasures.
Yeah.
If you want to talk, you gotta talk.
Right on. And for those of you who weren't in our last book club, if you get a chance, exactly what to say is a really good kind of sales training, in a sense, of how to break open and start looking at asking questions. Okay. Chapter 16, Ford questions. Okay. Yeah.
Heard for other sales seminars. Did Ford originate in this book or?
No, it's,
Yeah, no, it's all.
yeah.
It's just, if you go with this, the conversation could go on for like, I mean, hours, and you don't have to find topics, you don't have to make small chit chat. Like, they'll start spilling everything at you.
Yep.
And it's like, I used it this weekend with buyers, and I mean, yeah, learned everything. No, it was great, because, and I have my notebook, I asked, I think it comes later, I said, would you mind if I write some things down as we're walking through the home? And she's talking and I'm writing down like other details, you know, it's like, cause then I can use those things later, you know, if they buy and then I can touch points with them. I mean, it was just a great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good reminder to be well-rounded, because it'd be easy to stick with F and O to me. And it reminds me, like, as I'm talking, I'm thinking, sure.
Yeah, cause she was like, cause I usually do the same thing, and I asked these other folks, can you do, you know? And one of the important things was that she's an artist, and she wanted a room with really good lights that she could do her art. And then lo and behold, we were talking about art, and she showed me some of her artwork, she did horse pictures, and I was like, oh, do you write horse? It just led into like.
Yeah.
These really great conversations, and I write horses, so that became, you know, yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought about, I'm sorry.
Yeah, keep going. No, it's all good.
About. I talked to, our 2-minute warning should be like a 30-second. But, so I've got a friend, I swear to God, this dude, he wrote this chapter. Like his question, I mean, he just constantly asks questions, and they're great questions, and it's the exact same thing, like, you know, where we went with that last sentence, and it blows my mind. However, the one thing that I would say for him is that, because I'm on the, I don't feel like I know him as well as I feel like he might know. And so I think it is still important for that relationship, for that, understanding each other and all that kind of stuff, still be able to have this mindset of, oh, really, that's great. I can create that connection with you because I share it through such and such. But again, I think this is a great reminder, not taking anything away from it, because I think it's so important. Not just talking about.
Yeah.
Going that ability to connect, giving something.
Well, the fourth question is usually two fantastic things. One is, you know, it says somewhere in this chapter, that chapter, how, you know, when you're making yourself likable, is allowing you to talk more about yourself. People like talking about themselves. Yeah. And they gravitate more toward you because you're given an opportunity to talk about themselves. That's one thing, you get that connection with the person. Not only that, but also these questions are brilliant because you're finding out life-changing events. You know, asking about how your family and what your plans in the future, things of that nature. And it's very subtle. That's the ninja way, is being so subtle about it and not sound like a salesperson. You know, you're not asking them, hey, you think about selling or buying anytime soon? You don't have to do that. Just ask the full questions. You're gonna get exactly what you need in there. I think, but the only feedback, the only thing I'm surprised doesn't say any of this chapter is about is when you're asking questions, is I'm surprised it doesn't touch on the art of asking open-ended and closed-ended questions in order to control the conversation. And like you said, you know, sometimes they overlook too much, they talk too much, and they can muddy the water sometimes. And I find that sometimes if you get them talk too much, they can talk themselves out of a sale or talk themselves out of the need to sell or buy. And sometimes you kind of have to reel them in and kind of like ask them closed-ended or open-ended questions when it's appropriate in order to get what you really need.
Well, just like we learned in exactly what to say, sometimes that's have them restate what they just said. So help me understand what you meant by this. And because sometimes people say stuff and sometimes they say it to protect themselves, right?
Yeah.
As they're saying it, or they throw out a cliche and not sure why they said it. So yeah, definitely. I think kind of bringing it just if you don't understand something, and that keeps you engaged if you're actively listening the whole time, because that's the problem we run into many times is we're listening to like respond, right? It's like, oh, they said this, and then you're like, you stopped listening for the rest of it, and they could be dropping little nuggets, and you're like, I'm gonna hit this out of the ballpark what they said first.
But what you said about getting a notepad, there's something powerful about that because when you bring out a notepad, especially when someone's rambling on,
Yeah.
it psychologically makes them abbreviate their point because they know you're writing it down.
Yeah.
If they know you're writing it down, they're gonna start focusing on facts.
I think too, for me personally, when I had that notebook out, I couldn't check out because I was like actively putting words down. I'm not writing full sentences. I'm writing words, but I'm like, they're moving on, I'm still catching words. And even though I'm not maybe getting like, even though she was going on and on, I was still like sentence word here, you know, and I just kept putting words. And I thought it was important to use a notebook, one, because I still like, still too young, it's but also because I felt like this was an older couple and I didn't want to be sitting there doing this the whole time, so. I felt like
Yeah.
the Notebook
Yeah.
was really important for both me and them.
Yeah.
The other thing, notebooks is I used to work in management. And whenever I had an irate customer come in the office and start complaining about something, and they'll come in there and mother F me and cuss me out and
Yeah.
threaten to blow my house up and be that angry because something went wrong. And I'll say, you know, Mr. Customer, I'm very sorry it happened. I want to make sure I got everything, you know, what happened?
Yeah.
When I start writing notes,
Oh, it's like
immediately
psychological.
they stop cussing.
Yeah,
They start focusing on facts.
yeah.
And they realize all the emotions
That's
go
great.
away. The facts come down to, you know, you're writing notes.
I think if you're doing it on the phone, even if you are literally on your phone writing the notes, to me, I don't know, to me, there would still be like a psychological visioning somebody on a phone.
Yeah, that's true.
There's just like this system of work, you're writing it down on a piece of paper. I mean, there's nothing else on that screen, it's, you know that they're on a piece of paper, so. I don't know, for me, like having a pen, I do think that that would probably work, just a phone, I don't know, that just.
Yeah, I always announce kind of like, do you mind if I take notes on my phone? Like, just so that they understand I'm not like, yeah, like, I know, I'm with you.
You ask permission, you know, you tell them that you're on your phone writing notes. I don't know, for me, I don't
Yeah,
know,
I
I
know.
still see phone in hand, I don't know.
Yep, I'm with you.
You know, one thing that, it's funny, because several months back, I was teaching my daughter Ford, right, trying to get her
Yeah.
to build deeper relationships with people. And one of the things that I told her is that a lot of the times the right question is an uncomfortable question, right? Because when we're talking about recreation and dreams and stuff like that, and you don't really know the person, sometimes you feel like it's a little invasive, but you know, it's okay to be uncomfortable, because if you get asked that uncomfortable question and then they're okay with giving you the answer, then your relationship grows a lot deeper.
Yeah.
And especially with our sellers, right? Like, there's a lot of times that we're like, all right, this doesn't really make sense, but I don't know that I want to ask them that. But if you ask them that, like, it opens up a whole new door to things.
I think going back to the other book, I'm not trying to jump back. into
Sure,
the
sure.
book things, but like saying, like, if you're comfortable telling me what, you know, and then asking the question, it gives them permission to not tell you.
Yeah.
So they don't feel like I think that was in the other book.
Yeah.
I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
But this guy
It
did
is.
say also like be culturally sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so I usually don't ever say, are you comfortable? My permission ask is out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Right, so.
And Richard, I think you mentioned this, like, I think probably the D is that one that potentially could be a little, because your dreams, your future plans, because sometimes people don't want to go out on the limb and like, you know, just like we were talking with our affirmations, sometimes it's like, ooh, if I put it out there, then like I'm committed to it, or I promised it to someone, and that's one where I think if someone does, it's almost like a signal. If someone does start talking about their dreams, it shows that they're comfortable with you. You know, I think that's one you almost have to build up to. But I think that's the power, and I think a lot of the Ford, because I think those other ones sometimes tend to build up to that, because what do you do with your family, occupation, recreation? What's the next step? And I think the dream is the next step, and that's a change, right? And that's what we're in a sense, we're change brokers, right? Like, because moving is a monumental change in someone's life. I mean, just from the crud that's in my family room to going to a new location, new school, right? So. All right, 17, power of Ford. It's kind of what we're talking about. Thoughts on this chapter? right? So this is where the third one negotiating, this is where, I think he was talking, we always assume price is everything, but there are other factors in here that you pull out from understanding their Ford.
Horsepower. That's
Yeah.
out. Put a cold consumer, like that's really the one way to build rapport
Mhm.
and be able to continue the conversation with them. Is to into that.
I think a lot is to, said, it's how you make people feel. And it makes people feel really good, what you guys said. Right? So, yeah, and I think that helps me do that.
And just meet, like interviewing and meeting people from other sales backgrounds, like we have so many contingencies, there's so many like outs in our sale that it's hard to like close someone hard right now and like just make a sale today that like, just pulling it out of thin air. You really have to, I think, build up to it. Because again, if all of a sudden you missed a fundamental chunk of their motivation, and then that crops up, the mother-in-law crops up 2 months later, right? In the middle of the home inspection period, which you didn't realize, the whole thing falls apart. And that's where it's a ninja's true purpose is to help people get more out of life, so it'd be understanding first. Okay, 18, what people will pay for. What do you guys think of this?
Love it.
I wanted to know the source.
Yeah, according to whom? Yeah. It's like the Bible, I'm just gonna believe it.
It's just true. You believe it, I feel like I'm an English teacher, it's true, it's probably stupid a little, not
No.
necessary, literally.
But-
He does give citations a lot, he'll give credit, but
But I think it's good because I think we do mix up the cost thing. I think we sometimes we get caught up in the cost. And yes, I think, 85% of the people, cost is a factor. One group doesn't care about value. The other, it's because we haven't demonstrated value strong enough to outweigh the cost.
But it also says people don't know what they want, like they say that they want, right, didn't we say, they say that they want products, but when you demonstrate value, then it turns out that they want value. You can't take people at what they say, totally. Well, that's back to the new one.
Yeah.
If the fourth question, you find their pain of pleasure, you kind of can really into it. If you know what their pain of pleasure is, you're gonna know exactly what's gonna be on them.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's pain, they had to downsize because their financial situations changed. So now what's important to them is that gonna be, well, that's a swimming pool, not, what's more important is the practicality of, is it gonna be, to make financial sense?
Yeah.
Where numbers are more important, not necessarily whether it's got a fenced in backyard or not.
And I think oftentimes, people confuse value with the lowest price.
Are we talking about compensation or are we talking about like the price of a home?
Yes. Just in general, let's just say you're at a listing appointment and you're talking about your compensation. And I think that oftentimes you can say, this is what you get for this. But so often people, I feel like, are just still gonna go with the lowest price.
Bigger rooms, I've been waiting on this whole other piece of the job, and clearly this is the
I think if it's a commodity, yes, right? Like if it's a car, right? I'm buying the lowest price car. They're both the same. Like I've checked the model numbers, all of that. When you're in service business, that's where there is such a different nuance. But if the consumer sees your services as the same, I think that's on us, right? To correct. And I think this does help. And whether this number's right or wrong, I think it gives me faith that look, like I got to step up my game. I can't just say, well, it was all cost, right? Because if I could demonstrate like on this that like, look, like hire me, I can almost guarantee I will get you $25,000 more, right? And I'll put in that effort, right? If I can demonstrate that and do a better job, But sometimes that's hard if you're, and that's where it goes back to how you build your business, right? Who you're talking to, because if you're coming in cold and trying to demonstrate to someone that I can definitely deliver this value, they might be really, really skeptical. But if they've gotten, and again, going way forward, if they're in flow with you, they see what you've done for other people time again, convincing them, right, that you can deliver a lot of value isn't as hard, right? Make sense?
That's like the expired and FISBO conversation, right? Like you have an expired conversation because they're willing to pay commission. They just had a bad experience, you have to go in and show their value, but with FISBO, doesn't matter like how much you bring. For sell by owner generally doesn't want to pay a commission, they're like stuck to that. So, and bring that value.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings is, price is only an issue in the absence of value.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the big one, like whenever I'm sitting down with the seller is trying to just bring that value to them, of saying, well, hey, look, I'm not the cheapest, and if you want the cheapest, I can recommend you the cheapest, but here's what you're not gonna get with the cheapest. And when you're in the situation with the cheapest, you're gonna wish that you would not have hired the cheapest, and here's why.
Yeah.
Right, and showing a lot of those data points that you've taught us to show.
And the warning I'll give you guys, just I see this, sometimes when it comes to people who are just only cost focused, is that they talk about this grinders. I also find that, again, we have multiple negotiating points within the contract that sometimes at the end of the day, you will be the last negotiation again, right? Like, okay, I gave them a huge break on the commission. And then once the offer comes in, then they're gonna want to negotiate that hardcore. And then if there's any problems, they're gonna be looking to you to fix them.
And then culturally too, we have like segments of people that are gonna beat you up regardless of what value you show. And that's why I think I really like his saying of focus on the 85% who aren't focused on the lowest price.
Yeah.
Because you are gonna have those people and it's okay to say no to them.
I find that most people who question cost or price just don't understand value. That's gonna be 85 or 80% of the people.
Yeah.
I usually find it out by just asking them, if you understand the service I'm providing. What did you like best about the service I'm providing you? To make sure they understand the value. If they can answer that, then you didn't do a good job explaining or selling your value to them. Because a lot of times, if you don't sell your value up front, they're not gonna, if you do a good job, selling your value up front, usually you almost never question the price.
Yeah.
And if they do, you wanna find out, well, if they say to you, I want it cheaper, well, please define cheaper. Is it because this number of bunch does not make sense for you? Is this number gonna prevent you from netting what you need to net? And then usually you find out from the very beginning what their goal is financially, then you kind of hook them, because if they say, yeah, I need to net 150,000 because I need to use the net proceeds to buy my next house. Well, if you could show them that, hey, with my premium, to give you the value and service that you want, you're still gonna net, if not more, what you're looking for based on these comps. And I think that, but then you'll find out if they say, well, that's one good deal, then
Yeah.
I'm not gonna waste my energy on that person. I'm gonna say, well, this is the way I deliver service, and I'm not gonna disservice you by shortcutting my services for you.
Yeah.
That would be a disservice, and if you're going against my principles.
Yeah. And I think scripting is very important when you're talking to that person, because like you said, if you realize through questioning that their bottom line is the most important, it's so easy to show them, well, if bottom line is most important, cutting services isn't going to be what's going to help you get the most money.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to articulate that is very important.
Can I, sorry,
Yeah, go for it.
it's just a quick question, how people handle things. Kind of talking about the upfront, creating expectations of values, grabbing all of that. What are y'all's thoughts on, because I was talking to a client and I said, listen, I don't want you to know about pennies. I have to give it so that you can have a smooth transition. He talks here about how that's a lot. Well, priorities. And my client recently told me, she said, some of the most successful people that I know
Say that again.
some of the most successful people I know let their clients know what struggles they have to deal with. So what is you guys find, or is that balance? Where it's like, hey, I don't want you to have to stress about this, let me shoulder that burden, because that's kind of what I'm doing. First is, hey, I want you to understand what I have done, so that you value what I brought. And so, for just the fact that you're sitting at some of the table, you know that one way they're.
I wouldn't tell them that I want to have headaches. I think that if you just explain the process, start from the end. The realistic expectation is what it takes to go through selling or buying a home. If they see all this involved in that, then every presentation, I always show them the roadmap of buying or selling a home. Sure. What's all involved in that potential roadblocks when they have facing. And they see that.
Like, I agree.
During the process,
I do the
See
same
what you're
thing,
saying.
yeah, but like along, so like mid-transaction. what is that?
I'll tell you, Ray, I'm telling you, I had a shitstorm coming my way. I just fixed it for you,
Yeah.
like I'm bragging about it.
Well, yeah,
Because here's the thing, there's two things to it, right? The way that you're looking at it is, okay, I'm gonna handle everything internally, I won't let them know the headache. But then when it falls apart, how do you now go back to them and say, okay, here's the 7 problems that came up that I thought I could handle, but it didn't go how I thought it was gonna go, and now you're taking the blame for that shitstorm that you couldn't solve, right? So like, I'm letting you know, here's the problems that are happening, here's what my intended solution is. Do you agree? Yes, okay, perfect, let me go out and fix it.
Yeah, and I never take decision making out of their hands.
Yeah,
I think it would be just.
We had a transaction not too long ago, and it made, not that it's about us feeling good, but I remember the client said, and we were selling their house, and she said, I never realized how much you guys do. And I think that was, because it was just a bunch of, it wasn't anything complicated, but it was just, you know, what we do. It's a lot of, you know, finagling and making things work and fitting things in the right size hole. And she was like, you know, I know, of course, you know, you and Susan have a great reputation. I didn't realize how much was involved. And I think we can protect them from certain drama that doesn't, you know, they don't need to know we're dealing with an asshole on the other side or whatever necessarily. But I think that it's a good education for consumers to know, you know, because it's gonna be one less person on Twitter or Reddit that's putting our business down because we don't do anything. You've got somebody then saying, no, you know, actually, I just went through this transaction and I was shocked at how much my agent managed that I didn't even know was part of the picture. So I think you can use it as a tool to educate without sucking them into things that they're not necessarily, you know, there are things they don't necessarily need to know, regarding things, you know, but I think it's good to clue them in on,
yeah. The last minute deal breaker,
yeah,
why are the drapes gone? If you
Yeah.
Come back on that.
Well, I try to prep my clients as much as possible. When I foresee some issues, sometimes you know you're dealing with, there's times like I tell my client, like, look, like this is a newer agent. Here's what could happen during the home inspection, right? Just to prep you guys, because of this, and this, here, this could be an option. I'll let you know if we get to that crossroad, right? So I just kind of prep them that like, I'm already looking over the hill. I'm already seeing that there could be these issues. And then there's times I'll have a strategy session with them, like here's where we're at. We got option A, like I want to give them options, even though kind of like in the exactly what to say again, I'll wait one of the options, but I put it in their lap and help them. But yes, you have a little bit of that, the sausage factory, right? Like you'd never eat sausage if you knew what happened at the
Right.
sausage factory. Some of you want to protect your clients from that you don't need to involve them in everything, but there are times when, again, if you feel like this could blow up in your face, right? Like now your clients have made all these decisions unbeknownst to you, that now like the dog's already in the kennel, we've already taken the kids out of school and now you're telling me we're not moving, right? Like,
Yeah.
And you knew about it a week ago, and again, that's an extreme example, but that, those things sometimes happen when we're just trying to maybe protect our clients.
right, yeah, and I think that you know, let's just say these clients move somewhere else and they're working with another realtor and, you know, I think it's good for us that really do our jobs wholeheartedly to create those expectations of what they should expect in a good realtor. We are out there putting all these fires together. We're not, you know, we are answering our phone texts at 11 o'clock at night and 6 in the, you know, we are out there doing this for you. So if you do move on and find another agent, you have those expectations of, you know, what truly is an agent that's working on your behalf. I just had a client email me or leave me a voicemail apologizing for being, and she's not, her expected, like, well, there's some issues and the expectations versus the reality of what the final walkthrough was, should have been like, was. And she's like, you know, I'm sorry I'm being so difficult. And I'm like, well, there's nothing difficult about expecting the recycling bins to have been left, you know, about the grass not having been cut in 3 weeks. You know, your expectations were reasonable. Unfortunately, you know, contractually, we can only do so much, and I'll fight for you as much as you want me to. But contractually, they're only obligated to a bare minimum regarding how they leave the property. So, you know, we can put things on hold and try and force their hand, but there's only so much. You tell me at this point what you want, and then I'll work for that.
Yeah. Kind of going through here a little bit also, like, so, you know, when there were, when some big discount brokers came into the marketplace, I tried changing my vocabulary too and not calling them discount brokers, because discount's actually a good thing, right? And you think about it, like, everyone wants a discount, right? So low service, limited service, subpar service, cheap service, right? Like, if you're gonna label them, don't give them credit for the positive. I would, you know, it's really the trade-off.
I think limited service is a good,
Yeah.
good way to say it.
Yeah.
Cheap.
And then in the last part, they talked about that increasing your income per hour. He talked about the woman who ran the discount brokerage shop in town. And she actually kind of built it up. She started doing a menu of services. And that's something I think in this day and age of now, we're almost, now we are starting from zero in some ways with compensation on the buyer's end. I think this is going to be an important thing to start thinking about is your, you know, your bronze, silver, and gold package. How you deliver that, how you pitch that, I think is going to be individual, but I think it's good to start thinking about that, because if the marketplace severely changes where we are confronted with these issues, that sometimes, you know, some clients may not want to pay for all of those services, right? Or may not see it initially that you have an option to limit your services to.
What I love about this is, you know, I'm actually gonna use this. I have a couple clients, repeat clients that I think they start off as a referral, and I agreed to a lower rate on the transaction just to get them, because they want they're comparing my services, right? But like, once you do that, you almost like, you feel obligated to keep doing that.
Yeah.
But I mean, from here, I learned that there's a way out of it by showing, hey, let me show you, I have 2 years of service. You want to continue what we're doing now, or do you want to do this service plan?
Yeah,
And that's a fantastic way of getting out of that rut.
yeah. I've learned that whenever you're working with somebody that you know you're gonna do multiple transactions with, the discount comes on the last transaction.
Yeah.
Because I have been screwed so many times where they're like, we're gonna buy this house, we're gonna sell this house, we're gonna do this. And I'm like, great, I'll do it for, 2% or whatever. And then they're like, yeah, so that last house,
Yeah.
we decided we're not gonna sell it. And I'm like, that's what I was supposed to make all my money on.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
And the second thing I say, I love the different packages, especially today, right? Because if you have somebody that's coming to you and they're like, hey, I only want to pay 2%. Screw it, take the listing at 2%. Like, you're not responsible for the buyer side of things anymore. They're gonna write it in anyways. It'll become a negotiation then, but again, helping them understand what they aren't gonna get with the limited service segment is really good. And I picked up from an event we went to the other day where they were, the team that was speaking has structured a 4, 5, 6, 7% commission structure. And so the way that they do it is if the seller finds their own buyer, sorry, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If the seller finds their own buyer, they do it at 3%. If a buyer comes unrepresented, they do it at 4%. If their team brings in the buyer, they do it at 5%. If there's another buyer's agent that's included in it, it's done at 6%. And then if they want any like repair or renovation services, they do it at 7%.
Yeah.
And their buyers or their sellers are like, shit, yeah, I'll take that. And, you know, I mean, like they know upfront usually what they're gonna make and it works out really well.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's and again, there's a opportunity now with this kind of segmenting out the buyer's agent compensation as to how you market this and how you structure your deal. And it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily take a bath, but it's also, and I think if you have some tiered, you also, because your package may include all of these services, and the client may say, well, because of the property, we don't need any staging, we don't need any repairs to the property. So then they feel like, well, I want a discount, right? And maybe you were already trying to offer it at a discounted rate and doing this stuff as extra, right? And so then people want to knock down where you're at, and you're already at your rock bottom. So things to think about. And that segues into 19, creating value proposition. So have you guys thought about your business as core, basic, differentiated, custom, and convenience?
I think so. Just have it packaged it that way.
Yeah.
It's something I need to work on.
All right. So what would and I think core, basic, probably we all get. Differentiated, custom, and convenience is where we start getting into kind of a according to whom kind of definition. So let's talk about this. What are some differentiated, custom, and convenient services that you guys are seeing? Do you guys do so what they're differentiating the pre-listing package? You guys doing that?
I mean, it just surprises me that that's not a core service, but I guess I understand why.
Well, I find from a scarcity model, a lot of agents don't want to give their listing presentation because the next agent's going to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally when I hear that, I'm like, dude, I've seen your listing presentation. Like exactly. Pump the brakes. I think you're good. Sorry. Professional photography. I'm still shocked at how many iPhone photos are out there.
Oh, I know.
But that's why you also but 29% cancellation rate right now in Bright. I think people, again, agents are using the COVID marketing plan still. And it's not working.
I think sometimes, we all do on Redfin. I think there are some good Redfin agents that we've dealt with on a regular that do a professional job, and we're not like, oh, it's a Redfin agent. But, they also have great pictures, and, they do offer things that, when you're trying to show your value over someone like a Redfin agent, it's not always so clear cut.
Yeah, and I think where Redfin's done a good job is that so the last transaction we had was terrible. I paid someone 6% and I got crap agent. Why not get a discount? I get a crap agent, right? They're gonna do this, and this, and I know exactly what their marketing plan is that I can tie them to, because the last agent who pitched me, just all they talked was in platitudes and what they could do.
Website.
Yeah.
They definitely.
They've got their core services down pat, right? And I think and they know what they can deliver. And I think that's the other stuff they have a harder time delivering on. But the consumer's like, well, for the cost, I'll pay for the core package, right? They don't understand is what they could be getting, but
Right,
their past experience may make them believe that it's all discount.
yeah, and from a visual standpoint, you
Yeah.
know, hey, there are nice pictures, there's a tour, there's, you know, there's these things.
The stuff you
This
can cut a
agent
check
does
for.
A lot
Yep.
of business, you might, you know.
Yep.
It's easy to look at that from a, you know, just a general information perspective and not see where you're losing any value.
Which
Absolutely.
comes back to Ray's framing, like every single person is different. And if they just need that bucket and they're not thinking they're different, then it's easy for them to
Yeah.
lock themselves in that bucket.
Basically, to sum it all up, raise.
Yes.
Hey, I'll take all the golf into the room.
They're all in a bucket, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Holy shit.
Wow.
Mac, do you have anything to say? You gonna hop in there? All right, okay, differentiated services, marketing plan, professional photography, brochures, property websites. I was hoping Caroline was in here. I'm gonna have her next time talk about Focus First. I don't know if you guys played around with Focus First. Have you played with it before?
You see this all the time.
Okay,
It's really great to start with, on the focus first, now that properties aren't selling. Like I ran one for the first time the other day in 20901, price range around 500,000, and 26% of the properties are not selling. So when you can start your pricing with that big red thing there showing, these are ones that are pricing, but there is an issue here with the property not selling. It's an attention game.
this is like, for those of you guys who sat through one of my pricing classes, this is my pricing CMA. What I've started looking at is like list price versus sales price. To show that there is, you know, at one point or another, this column. At one point it was almost automatic. Everything was bidding up, right? It was going for list or above. And now there's like in this marketplace, there's some breaks in here where from original list price to close price, we're seeing $30,000, $25,000, $80,000, $10,000, $500 drops, right? That there is some issues in the marketplace. So I think having a better pricing tools is going to be really important in this marketplace. And I was also able to talk to the client based on your price per square foot. We're hitting where they want to be. We're hitting, like, there isn't a property that's sold for that price per square foot. So I've kind of teed up maybe that's not the right pricing strategy. So. All right.
That spreadsheet right there is clutch, man. You'd be surprised like how many people don't use anything like that. When talking to sellers, they're like blown away by it. Break it out and show them dollar per square foot, rooms and all that. So
Yep.
kudos on that.
Do we have back?
Yeah, I can give you that. And I've done the class a couple times, and if you want to go over that, I can definitely. I'll sit down and it's a little. It took me a little bit to get through, but once you understand some of the concepts, and I can do them for you too.
How long does it typically take you to prep that? Plus, CMI.
It's really just selecting the comps, right? It's just making sure I'm picking the right comps that are, you know, that are comparable. And then I've got to go through the spreadsheet and just like, so I've got to trim out like, because basement, so I only look at above grade square footage. So the basement is an important factor, right? Because that can almost be a third of finished square footage, right? That's added into the equation. And then whether it's walk out, walk up or not. So I have to go through sometimes the basement photos. So probably like to do that chart will take me about 20 minutes now. After, yeah. Okay, custom services, pre-inspection. Anyone do a pre-inspection?
Clients one not too long ago, well, last year sometime.
Your seller.
Yeah.
Yep,
so-
seller client.
Yeah, and she did, they made any repairs that needed to be made, and then they were happy to provide that. we never would have needed it because it was such a competitive house, but they felt strongly about presenting their house.
Yeah, because I thought about it with like buyers wanting to do pre-inspections, like if you just handed them I mean, I think it would probably get you some more offers, maybe not now as much, I don't know, I mean, it'd be interesting to see.
The father and son.
Yeah,
They were doing that certified.
Rick
used-
Thompson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sort of certified used house.
Yep.
Package.
Anyone, good,
I spoke with Dan over talked about him
Yep.
about this just last week, and he said when they did a full pre-inspection, there was everything up. There was always like every third time, there was some type of consternation with the agent wanting to use theirs compared to Domptonic's. He said where they've kind of trimmed it down and have something that's more definitive is doing the major systems. So it's a pre-inspection of just the functional systems. They're doing the roof, they're doing the HVAC, the hot water heater, all the big items. And they're all much more definitive than if you have a full inspection. So you can put, I forgot exactly what he called it, but it's like the major systems pre-inspection still allows somebody to write pretty strongly. Their normal doesn't include roofs. There is somebody locally, pardon me, that doesn't include windows and doors. There's a competitor of ours close here in Albany who does windows and doors, but she does that as well. So that's kind of the way it went. Maybe it's something to test.
yeah, because I always tell my seller clients, like, go, like, have a handyman or go pop in the attic, because that's where I think a lot of our things that you never go into your attic, and that's where sometimes there could be you had your roof replaced, but you never went up there and they broke a beam, or there could be some microbial growth on the sheathing on the inside, or something up there, or a bird or something's living up there that just freaks people out in the inspection. Staging, anyone include staging in their listing package? Okay, do you charge more for that? Do you allow someone, if they don't want staging or don't need it, they can discount it?
So I usually charge a percent extra for
Okay.
staging.
And then you pay for the staging, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pay for it upfront. Well, now if, like with Moyer, they'll collect at closing, so
Yeah.
I only have to pay the deposit. But, yeah, generally I'll include that service.
Okay.
And again, it really comes down to like the seller that's looking to get top dollar, not anybody else.
Kitchen counter displays with information. Yep.
I saw the house, I thought it was a great idea, because this was a house that was clean, it was nice. But it wasn't updated, and there was no deck, it was very just built and grade. And when I took the buyer to the house, the seller had little signs in the kitchen saying, like suggestions, you can knock down this wall and make a living concept. Or picture your deck being built here, or just little things, just to give ideas and inspirations on how you could look at the house or look at the room in a different way. I thought it was just a great idea, even have pictures of designs, 3D renderings of how it's taking a good look. If you invest in this house.
Yeah.
It was just a great idea.
That's very cool.
Did they buy it?
No,
Okay. That's a great, and that, like, if you ever have an unfinished basement house, like, that's something I think having plans for a finished basement, that's. Because if you look at the expired and withdrawn listings in Bright, most of them wind up having unfinished basements at certain price ranges. All right, let's get on 20, building your brand. Pillar 1, recognition. Pillar 2, reputation. Pillar 3, relevance. Pillar 4, differentiation. Thoughts on this? Ray?
Sorry, no, I was just making fun of Heather.
Okay.
She just turned her volume up. She was not listening, even though she was. We go and call her out.
Yeah.
Right, so I did not hear what the question was.
I thought you wanted to say something. There she is. Uh-oh. She's coming.
I was just giving haven't heard shit. You know, it's still making me laugh.
Right here.
And this is like when I teach a marketing class, I kind of go over this. Like sometimes marketing at a base level, your marketing does recognition, does branding, right? Like even if you send out recipe cards or you just do a postcard with your face on it, right? You're creating brand recognition. Then it gets into, reputation is something that's a little bit beyond your marketing plan. But relevance and differentiation, right? This is where you pitch your services, and that's where really good marketing kind of does all four things at the same time. All right, any other thoughts on this one?
I like the little story.
Yeah, yeah.
The cop,
Yeah.
Mhm.
where he's visiting Colorado, the cop pulls him over, and just because I guess the agent, the cop wowed about the search he had from an agent and getting somebody off the ticket.
Yeah.
And this, what's that?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, have a nice day and say hi to her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
When is that ever?
I would, go back to this, the top 6 services that buyers and sellers want. I think making sure that your marketing plan, and your presentations nail this. Okay, chapter 21. Proactive trusted advisor. 25. Yeah. I would tell you like the proactive part of it. This is, I think we were talking about this, Tracy, like the game plan, like how do you, the last thing you want is what's going on with the sale of my property, right? Like what's going on with this? Cause then you wind up, then your client then takes a little bit of control. And starts directing where this ship should be going because you clearly aren't at the helm.
Right.
Yeah, so you always want to, and that's where, going back to exactly what to say, as promised, here's my weekly update, right? Like you're always pushing information out to them first and setting that expectation that every Monday you will get a full report from me. If anything comes up in between then, you will hear from me. So that at least you have some anchor in your communication that they know that something's coming.
Right.
Show up, right? Like their rules, show up on time, pay attention, tell the truth. You guys are good at this stuff.
Obvious that you're like, people really don't do this stuff, but
I will tell you, sometimes what happens is, rule 5 is one that we really have to check ourselves on sometimes. I think we don't think we are, but I've had people come to me and talk to me about situations and I'm like, dude, your commission breath is so bad. And they don't know they're doing it. But I know like if they're telling me about it and I'm sensing it, I'm like, your client's gotta know, and that's where
I mean, I saw on one of the Facebook mastermind, whatever things, somebody was complaining because the listing agent, they went to settlement and the listing agent got a higher compensation than she did. And it's like, well.
Yeah.
That's their business.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's big is, what about if your client is asking you for updates, you're dropping the ball.
Yeah.
I said, that's a big problem, and I find that even I do for myself, it's the same thing going on with, promising, delivering what you promised, promising to deliver. And again, this business is very hard to promise, because a lot of things are beyond your control. But I think that the smallest thing that I always do is whenever I'm with a client, I always let them know when I'm gonna give another update. And I put it on my calendar to remind them. That's one thing I have complete control over is me being able to follow my client. And if I can at least keep that promise in their eyes, like, hey, at least the guy calls, or at least he's keeping me informed. And that goes a long way.
I mean, I think when we get a call asking a question on it, it's like, are our systems tight enough? Did we over communicate enough? I always look at it like that's,
Yeah.
it's already like, my systems aren't good enough. We dropped the ball somewhere. They're having problems.
All right, then we shift into principle 3, the ninja business strategy, right? We're already into principle 3. Science of abundant real estate transactions. So 11 to 14% of all households in the United States move every year.
Yep.
All bullshit on this?
That's dreadful.
Anyone believe it?
It's old data.
Yeah, could be old data. But I bet it's pretty close to that number.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you think about it, non-owners, renters.
Yeah, they're moving every year.
So, and again, sometimes I forgot about this nuance when you do hear, number of transactions that are gonna happen in the US, let's say it's gonna be 4.7 million this year, it's really double that, right? Because that's two sides, right? In some cases, right?
That's market transactions.
Most.
So he uses this approximately 15% transaction rate in the US. Any questions on that? You guys follow that math? I had to read this like 3 times, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, chapter 22, working smart. So I'll let you into a dirty brokerage secret. Okay, so cold direct mail. So many old school brokers used to offer free direct mail on your behalf. A lot of that was because only about 1 in 10 agents make it. So what they want to do is to market their brand to marketplaces. They could care less whether you have clients or connections in that marketplace. They want you out there marketing. So a lot of agents come to me and they're like, well, I got a new listing. I'm going to market to the 200 homes around that listing that I don't know a soul. And then they don't have any money to market to their sphere or their referrals. And I think a lot of that comes from an old kind of mentality that, they want to spread the brokerage name, not necessarily your name. And that's where this conversion rate, I'd agree. Like, cause I tell agents like, look, like if you market those 200 homes, yeah, I mean, it's like, sure, there's a possibility you could catch someone at the right time. But if you've spent all your budget on that and you have no budget to market to, again, the kind of everything below the line, then something's wrong with your budget. So Buffini's big on know, like, trust. Ninja adds in flow, which kind of puts a process to this, which when I first read the book, I was like, that's the key, right? Like, and I don't know if we're at this point yet, but we're not. But where he talks a little bit further about like, just because you've done a great job for someone 9 years ago and they're going to return to you, they don't. That one hurts.
Well, we just had a listing, well, not necessarily a listing appointment, a meet and greet with some customers who the agent that they used to buy their house and one other condo, when we asked why they weren't using them again, they were like, well, we really liked them, but we just stopped hearing from them. And they're looking, the transactions that they're looking to make are significant.
Yeah. Yep. So you guys understand what flow is? Frequency of interaction?
Wagner.
And this is important. If they feel that you might make them look bad, they won't refer you. And this is where if you're not showing people how you do your business, they may not engage with you because they don't want to feel like I got to refer people to you or I got to use you because I don't know how you do your business. I don't know if you're active in the business. Or some people are like, oh, I don't want to market to my friends and family, but they're the people who'd be most likely to refer you, and you're not arming them with all of your tools. They just don't know how you do your business. And they will use you, right? But they're not gonna refer you out, and that's one of the big things that we sometimes get stuck on, is that these folks aren't moving, right? But they know people who are, but they're not referring me, and why? I think if you look at your flow, I think that will probably be one of the biggest reasons why. So I think you guys got the other stuff, know, like, trust.
I like how the fact that it defines the effectiveness of the flow. You know, whether the flow has gotta, it's gonna solve a problem or make you feel good. If it doesn't do either of those, then it's not, don't do it.
Mhm.
So if you're gonna call them, email and text them, or do a post on social media, if it doesn't make them feel good or give them value of, of solving the problem, don't even do it, don't even post it.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me look back on what I'm doing and like, is this effective or not? Is this email campaign I'm paying all this money for, is it worth it? Is it really touching those two things? If it's not, I'm gonna cancel it.
I would say, like, if you can Google it, it may not be that valuable what you're sending.
Yeah.
All right, 23, the power of flow. Again, American population knows 12 realtors, right? So what makes them choose you over the other 11? And we've gone over this stat before, the NAR home buyer home seller survey, where at the end of the transaction, they're super happy when they survey, who they actually used. Typically isn't the agent who sold them the home. Thoughts on this one?
I love the story you shared with us.
I didn't read this far ahead. I didn't follow directions and I stopped at the gray page.
Okay. So here, this is really cool because this happens all the time. And I think, Tracy, this is kind of a little bit of, so from time buyers and sellers make get the first inspiration to do something until they have a closing could take 9.3 to 21 months. However, during that process, they select a realtor in just 72 hours. Right?
Yeah.
We went on an appointment. They listed the home 2 years ago. The agent got them $100,000 over list price. The home they wanted to go to fell through. They called us in because we are in flow with them because of a referral, right? Like, I'm almost like, why you didn't call the other agent? Like,
Right.
they did a great job. But and we've gotten burned on the other end of this. But it just goes to show that they just weren't in flow. And that's all, right? Like,
Yeah, but it's, I don't know if anybody else, I think the biggest challenge is because I tell you, by the time, for a large percentage of our clients, by the time you get to the settlement table, you feel like you're friends. And then it's kind of like, you never know. I mean, I don't want to say you never know, you do what you do, but then you quickly realize, well, wait a minute, no, this was, yes, we're friends and friendly, but they're not inviting me over for dinner. I'm not inviting them over for dinner. It's trying to figure out how to continue to be in their life without being that, like, oh my God, will this person ever go away? We really just wanted them as our realtor.
Mhm.
So it's all, to me, it's always finding that balance of,
so the easiest one is the post-closing that we do the worst at.
Yeah.
And that's the one, like, Maria Kolick has this 1,
yeah,
7,
she
30 quarter.
definitely, has a
And it
good,
makes total sense. Call them the day after closing, because there's something that happened at closing that they've got a question about. You've already been paid. They're not buying or selling another house, so you're there out of service. 7 days later, it's usually something's wrong with the house. Now you can
but I
refer.
don't wanna know about that, I'm kidding.
Well, there it is, bingo.
It
No, I'm
happens-
kidding,
it
I'm
happens
kidding,
enough
but,
ways enough.
yeah,
And then 30 days is usually some type of referral, maybe to a pediatrician,
right,
restaurant, something like that. There might be more community related. And then now you call them quarterly, and it's not awkward, right?
right,
You're just continuing the service. And that's like, I'm having Chloe in our buyer guide. We stopped at chapter 10 at closing, and I'm like, we need chapter 11, because really that's That's what you hire me for. Now I'm your house consultant going forward.
Right.
Anything real estate related, now you've got me. But I've got to hold up my end of the bargain and make sure I'm providing value and staying in flow.
Right. But I know, like, I guess for most all of us, I'm sure, I'm not alone. I hate getting junk mail. I hate getting postcards. I hate getting emails. I hate getting anything unnecessary.
What do you like?
None of it.
What do you like?
What would I like?
Solitude.
I mean, really, so, yeah, I know you're putting this back on me. You know, one of my favorite things, like, let's just go get a coffee or you know, whatever. I like person to person contact, but that's, I don't want to say it's not doable because then I'm just making excuses. That's, I guess, where then I find, okay, was the relationship really where I felt like it was? Do they really want me? I start to doubt, like, okay, you're 30 years younger than me. Do you really want me dropping by your house to visit your, you know, whatever? I start sort of getting that self-doubt about where the relationship really was at the end of the transaction. And I never want to be that, like, oh my God, our neighbor or our realtor just won't leave us alone. So I struggle with that. And that's a me thing for sure.
I feel like that about sometimes.
Yeah.
One thing I like to do is after closing, the two things people remember most, one part is the closing experience and the moving experience. And, you know, not to promote Eastern Title Settlement, but they have a free moving truck, all the clients, they have access to. So I have a buyer that, you know, closed their house 2 weeks ago. I followed up with them and say, when's the moving day? Oh, it's gonna be in a couple weeks. Don't forget, you can get a free moving truck. So I coordinate with him. He's picked up the moving truck on Friday. He takes it back on Sunday for free. And when he moves in, I'm gonna be there moving day. I'm gonna bring a bunch of pizzas and just be there. I'll be there for 15, 20 minutes, just, you know, chat. He's gonna have friends with them. This is great because when they're moving themselves, they got a crew of people that are helping them move if they have good friends. And it gives you a chance to network with their friends and when you're there, part of that experience, them to the very end when they're moving into the house, I think it goes a long way than just closing day.
For sure.
I just, to your point, and I don't remember, I feel like this was recently, I don't remember if it was like a Tom Ferry thing. But in today's day and age, where people have cell phones, they can see who's calling. Like if you call and say, hey, do you have a second? Well, if they picked up the phone, then they probably have a second. If they say yes to going to coffee with you, then they probably want to go to coffee with you. So I think sometimes just, you know, if they're not picking up your phone call, then they probably don't want to hear from you. But I always feel like if I call somebody and they answer, I don't have to say like, hey, do you have a second? They picked up the phone, they have a second. I don't know.
And I think this gets into the quality and the content that you're providing them, right? Because if you're just like, and I don't mean to beat up on recipe cards, but you know, for people who don't cook, like pounding me with recipe cards is pretty irrelevant, right? Like, but I think if you're providing, like, that's what I was trying to ask, like, what do you want, right? Like, so if you said, I want accurate market data on my house, you know, so I know what it's worth, or if there's a time I should should I refinance or not, right? Like, should I put an addition on the house or not, right? Like, is there information that you can provide me that, and maybe that's mixed, right? You may have something different. I think that's where your content that you're getting to your clients should be quality. And that's where I tend to, like, sometimes canned content can just be like that. It is spam. It's just junk, right? Like, and that's
We definitely have, you know, I have past clients that call, you know, hey, we're thinking about turning our carport into a mudroom, you know, how much is that gonna, you know, and I'm glad that we have those relationships where I'm top of mind when they want to make a decision like that. I guess I just am always, I never want to be the spam in there.
yeah, but so if you take that, like, and that's where you're looking for market data, right? Like, so if a couple clients call me every year asking about home improvements, why don't I push something out? Because if they're the only ones who raise their hands, and there's probably another 10, 15 in my database that doesn't even know that I'm that option, right? Because we didn't have that conversation during the transaction.
Right.
or they forgot. And that's where you almost gotta look at like what content resonates with your database. Dig in and get really quality.
Yeah.
All right, so flow, they're talking three contacts, 3 automatic flows per month. Chapter 24. And then 50 live interviews a week. Doable?
So.
What was it?
50 live interviews, what,
Chapter 24.
No.
what is 50 live, what does that
Literally
mean?
just talking to people.
Talking, potential.
Boarding.
50 is a lot of
I
people,
think.
Yeah. It's a lot.
like outside of the people you normally talk to?
So you know, open houses, going to events, people at Starbucks, right? Anyone can be in this interview.
Yeah.
I would tell you, like, it is a lot if you're not doing it consciously, so it's a ramp up, but it is possible. It is definitely possible to talk to 50 people a week. It doesn't necessarily have to be banging the phone, right? For some people, that's super easy.
That's expensive.
Auto flow, so, again, like yesterday, I had Home Actions do their email newsletter. I like their stuff out of all the email newsletter programs. And you
Yeah,
can
I'll talk to him
customize them.
later.
That might be a good option, and I'm always big on, you should a postcard a month in your client's mailbox in your sphere. And again, like we're not talking 1,000, we're talking, I think probably max about 300. Most people somewhere between 200 and 300. Yeah, the live interviews is something you gotta ramp up to, but I think it's one of those things. Going back to affirmations, right? If your affirmation has something about, right, like I think yours even
Yeah.
had something, Mario's, yours had something about income, mine has something about being in my savings account. If I'm true to this, I need to start acting like someone who has this. And someone who has this is probably interacting and making a lot more contact than I am currently, right? Or if I don't want to do this, I'm not gonna be able to ever get this. And that's kind of a mental change that we need to start, you know, on a path to. Again, it's just like I tell people, it's like going to the gym, right? Like you don't go to the heaviest rack right away and start throwing weight around. Like sometimes you grab the pink 3-pound dumbbells and just start working it, right? Like, but
Seems like he knows
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Guilty. But you gotta work your way up, but you gotta also like realize you're gonna plateau, so you just gotta give yourself some like gradient changes. Any other 24? Anything else on 24? It was a long chapter. Budget is $2 a month per client. $4,800 per year total investment for a 200 person database. People spend that in a month on Zillow. The other stat was $1,000 in gross income for every household in your database. So if you have a 200 person database, you should be generating $200,000 out of that database. Most of us probably aren't, right? We're supplementing it with something else. And I think what he's trying to do is turn that you can do more, right? There's opportunity there. Again, if you have faith in that 15% number, there's a lot more transactions around you that you're just not involved in.
Wait, 200 people database, that's families or individuals?
That is households.
Yes.
Yep. Anything else on flow? Again, I say sometimes far too often I talk to agents and they blow their budget on things that don't necessarily create flow with the right people, and then they don't have enough budget to spend on those people. And then 113 system override. You're not going to do the automatic flow. You just got to step up your face-to-face, voice-to-voice, and you kind of has like a hierarchy, which is totally true. Face to face is the highest, voice to voice, text, mail, email, and then blanket advertising. All right, last chapter was on an 8 and 8. This is out of Hobbs Herder. I don't know if you guys have ever looked into doing an 8 and 8. I don't think you guys read chapter.
I told you, I stopped at whenever that page was that I thought we were supposed to.
All good, all good.
This is the first example I feel like you had that made me feel a little cringy. Like for me, it's like real estate is so different. Like Tracy said, we're talking about the differentiation between in other professions, I could have my work people, my work associates, and my friends, and it seems clearer. Where in real estate, it seems less clear. And in this case, where he's making a new friend, I don't know, I feel weird about transitioning into sending somebody real estate information suddenly. I would,
If it's not of high quality, absolutely, you're
Yeah.
totally true. Like, I'm not gonna send them spam, but I think if you understand who it is.
yeah,
Like I always tell people, the first time I meet someone, I'm running a homestead on them, and I'm letting them know if they have their homestead credit or not, because that's a tangible $692 I can get them, right? And then I'm looking for other things that like, are there other areas I can provide value, right? And I think when you meet someone new, you get a chance to almost demonstrate what are the areas like, so what are areas that, you know, like this relocation, you know. What are other areas that you guys could provide value for a client to spend? Homestead's one, right?
I think to your point too, if they're moving, relocating to the area, something like, and I know he says print them a map. I don't know how
Yeah.
relevant it is to print somebody a map nowadays, but if you have like a relocation guide to that area or something like that, that could be something.
Like Ellen Coleman, she tells a story about going to Maryland House up
Yeah,
on
and getting all the
95,
little-
getting all the little, there's little things that you can grab and then giving those to relocation people. Home value is another one. Your contractor list, your concierge list, right? Those are things that sometimes people, you know, in my golf group, every week there's someone asking for some type of service. You know, and I've done a poor job of proactively making sure like, oh yeah, you don't have to throw it out to the golf group, just come to me. Because I've got people who I know work on this stuff.
Well, and that's the thing, you don't wanna give out your list because you want them to come to you for that list.
Absolutely, but you want to make sure that they know that
That
you've
you
got,
have the
yeah,
list,
and
yeah.
what categories that you've got available to them. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we run into that at, listing appointments all the time where, they haven't hired us yet, but they want our resources and, you're like, yeah, don't share those yet. So,
You know, what's interesting, what I liked about this was that it talks about how effective eight is. They're pretty much brainwashes people. Because the very beginning, first met the person, I guess the realtor that helped them relocate was like a fantastic experience with. By the end of the eight, they completely forgot about that realtor.
Yeah.
They didn't know the name. Yeah.
Yep.
You actually did a case study. The person who did a case study. where-
Yeah, Hobbs Herder. Yep.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that usually that's applied if you hear like with geo marketing, that's a very common geo marketing. Actually, he turns this on its head and says, try this with your Sphere database with new people coming in. All right, next week, I think we're chapters 26 through something, another. Okay. Keep doing your affirmations, gratitudes, note cards, and reading mastery. The shit works. Trust it. All right. Any other questions? Sorry that we went really long today.
Said 26 and what?
I will send that out, the
He did it.
recap. Yeah. All right, guys, thanks for joining.